Hello, you. You're listening to A History of Italy. Special Regional Italy mini-series, Episode 5, Campania. This episode and the mini-series is made possible by our friends at Explore Worldwide, who offer small group adventures led by local tour leaders in over 100 countries around the world. Don't just travel, explore. Head to exploreworldwide.com for more information. It's funny what sticks in your mind sometimes. For example, if I say ancient Rome, what do you think of? The Colosseum, Caesar crossing the Rubicon, Augustus, the social wars, the madness of Caligula, Nero, Hadrian's Wall, Russell Crowe? There are so many places your mind can go. Mine goes to ancient Romans had fast food joints. These were shops open onto the road that usually had an L-shaped counter with a series of bowl-shaped holes in it. Inserted in these were a series of containers with coals under them, keeping different kinds of food warm. So, after a bit of exercise in the ludus with your mates Marcus and Titus, washing off and relaxing in the baths to talk a bit of the politics of the day, you start feeling a bit peckish, so you stop off. You can see some of these in one of the most fascinating places in the world, Pompei. I may be wrong, and I often am, but I don't know if there is another place in the world where you can experience such a vast and well-conserved testament to a past from 2 millennia ago. Not even in Rome, the eternal city herself, can you have such an experience. You, my dear constant listener, may have been to Pompei. If you haven't yet, I highly recommend spending a night in New Pompei, the modern part that has developed to the south of the archaeological site, where you can have a lovely evening wandering around the streets, having a nice meal, or having a drink in one of the cafes or a really nice pub we found there. That will allow you to get into the archaeological site as soon as possible the next morning, to beat the heat in summer and, most of all, the crowds, the silence, and the physical reality of a memory. You feel that if you stopped and listened carefully, you could almost hear the ghosts calling to you over the centuries. The last 2 times that I have been to Pompei, I stayed there practically all day, and I can tell you I still haven't seen everything there is to see, and they are continuing to uncover more. The most recent time I was there with my cousin and a good friend of ours. They were completely blown away by the place. My cousin felt that it was just too good, too well preserved, too realistic, too authentic feeling. He concluded that it was a fake and went on to suggest that the whole Roman Empire business was just a big conspiracy theory to attract tourists. He was joking, but afterwards I discovered that among all the crazy conspiracy theories there are out there, such as Jewish space lasers, lizard people, baby-eating democratic cabals, and flat Earth, there's also one about ancient Rome never having existed. We won't go there, because the worst thing you can do with those nutjobs is to give them the attention they so crave. The reason we have the treasure of Pompeii sits silently overlooking the archaeological site and new city, guarding but also threatening Mount Vesuvius. Since the famous eruption of 79 CE, the volcano has erupted over 30 times. A notable eruption was in 1631, which killed around 3,000 people and led to the constant monitoring of the volcanic activity. The most recent was in 1944. On that occasion, local villages were either destroyed or severely damaged, and 26 people were killed, mostly due to roofs caving in because of the weight of the ash. Dozens of United States military aircraft were destroyed in the nearby airfield of Pompei. Since that eruption, the volcano has been dormant, but experts estimate that there is a huge magma chamber underneath ready to explode. If you are visiting the area, bring comfortable running shoes. The mountain itself is a national park, and you can actually go up there with a tour. Then, of course, going around the mountain along the coast can take you to another important overlooked archaeological site, that of Herculaneum. A little bit further along the way, and you get to the ancient Greek colony of Partenope, which then expanded into the new city, Nea Polis in Greek, Napoli, Naples. The name of the original colony, Partenope, which was around the area where Castel dell'Ovo now is named after the siren Partenope. She was supposed to have been one of the sirens, the mythical creatures of Homer's Odyssey, who had tried to entice Ulysses to his death with their enticing voices. We know that the clever Greek hero had outwitted the creatures, having his sailors cover their ears and himself tied to the mast of the ship so he could still listen but not be lured into the sea. After the failure of Partenope, proving herself to be a really bad loser and rather dramatic, she killed herself. Her body washed up on the Neapolitan shores, and there she was entombed. The tomb was then found by Greek explorers who decided to found their colony there. Personally, if I went exploring and found the body of a weird half-woman, half-animal monster, I would quickly cover the thing up and then get the hell out as quickly as I could, just in case any of her friends or family came back. But that's just me. Before we do take our leave from mythical creatures, the whole siren business represented for me one of those moments of realization where you believe something for a good part of your life and then you discover it was a big, fat lie. Sirens for me had always been mermaids, so ladies on the top part complete with a bikini top for Disney audiences. Indeed, the Little Mermaid in Italian is La Sirenetta. Well, get this. The original sirens in the Odyssey were half woman and half bird. I'll give you a minute to get over the shock. It seems that the bird ladies became fish ladies around the time of the poet Boccaccio in the mid-1300s. Tradition would have the German romantic poet Wolfgang von Goethe declaring that you see Naples and then you die. Now, this is not to be taken in a literal sense, meaning that by some sort of evil magic, Naples induces heart attacks or strokes. In that case, you would have heard some sort of health warning from your embassy about the situation. What is implied in this famous quote, which Goethe never actually wrote anywhere, is that Naples is such a beautiful city, perhaps unparalleled in its wealth of art and architecture. Once you have seen it, your life has been fulfilled, and you can consider yourself satisfied. Now, I have had the great pleasure of visiting Naples a couple of times, but I still feel there are quite a few things I would like to do before shedding my mortal coil. Having said this, Naples, of course, has all the beauty and the rich heritage, culture, and architecture of other Italian cities with a certain special buzz about it. In most cities, there are certain areas in which the nightlife is concentrated, certain squares, certain roads, certain neighborhoods. In Naples, that area is everywhere. You can walk seemingly for miles around and always find a little corner where something is going on, or a square full of milling people and playing children, a road with a series of pizzerias and bars along the street, complete with throngs of locals and tourists as young people on scooters go wishing by. Just when you think you're heading for a quiet area, you turn a corner and you find another lovely little concentration of wonderful organized chaos. There are very few other places where I have walked around, a beaming smile on my face, soaking in the folklore and vitality of a place. And consider that I am usually a person who abhors crowds, noise, and confusion, and feel a lot more comfortable in a secluded, quiet place. You can also find these sort of peaceful corners in Naples, especially if you know how to choose the right place at the right time, but for me, it is the Neapolitan buzz that is the more attractive aspect of the city. Of course, there is the architectural splendor of the city that was once the capital of a kingdom and one of the largest cities in Europe. This is also thanks to the rule of the Spanish, particularly under Viceroy Pedro Alvarez de Toledo, who commissioned a lot of building projects, and if you want to experience some of the intense Neapolitan buzz and do some trendy shopping, you can head to the road named after him, Via Toledo. To him, we also owe the existence of the Spanish Quarter, where you can find a square, almost a mausoleum, dedicated to Naples' greatest hero. This was not a great military leader, ruler, writer, or artist, and not even an original Neapolitan, but an athlete, the footballer Diego Armando Maradona. It was he who arrived in Naples at a time when the city and the football team were in decline. He led the team to 2 Italian championships and, at the same time, gave back pride to the city. The square dedicated to him, for example, has gone from a squalid little corner of the city where you went to buy drugs to a popular tourist destination. The same being true of the rest of the Spanish Quarter. Perhaps one of the most unique aspects of Naples is Via Spaccanapoli. Not a single road, but a series of roads, one changing into the next, that creates a long line, uninterrupted by any buildings or obstacles to block it. From above, it looks as if it splits Naples in half, and indeed the name Spaccanapoli means Naples splitter. You can see it very well if you walk or take the funicular up to Castel Sant'Elmo and look down. Looking down from above is one sort of fascination, but Italian cities have a wealth of history also below ground. Napoli has 3 distinct underground entry points. My favorite is the one under the church of San Lorenzo, accessible from Piazza San Gaetano. There you can see an almost intact section of ancient Roman road, with houses and a fishmonger shop with a fish washing station. It's quite impressive, even after visiting Pompei. Before we leave the city, of course, we have to have a pizza, for this is its birthplace, and after that, if you have room and a bit of a sweet tooth, you can get yourself a babà. This rum-soaked sweet is so good that when the Neapolitans find something that is good, they say it is a babà. I love Naples and could go on for ages talking about it, but it's not the one thing that can draw us to the wonderful region of Campania. To get to Naples, we started our trip in Pompei. The trip can be done by car or by taking the Circumvesuviana train. It's a nice trip, but nowhere near as spectacular as what you find heading a bit further south, out of the province of Naples and into that of Salerno, where you can make your way along the winding roads in utter amazement as a spectacular view unfolds towards the coast and sea below you. Now, to experience the view of the Amalfi Coast, you could rent a car and brave the roads of Campania yourself. Otherwise, you can rely on the experience of Explore Worldwide. Now, if you think of Italy aside from its classic cities, perhaps the next thing that comes to mind will be one of 2 images. Either rolling hills crossed by winding roads flanked by cypress trees and dotted with vineyards, or winding narrow roads along cliffs overwhelming spectacular views of the sea and going from one quaint little village to another. Well, in the latter case, you are probably thinking of the Amalfi Coast, which is just one of the spectacular locations you can find in the region of Campania, perhaps the most Italian of Italian regions. As we said, Napoli, of course, is the passionate beating heart of the region, but there are also the beautiful gardens of the Villa at Caserta, the lemon trees of Sorrento, and of course, as we said, the unparalleled experience in all the world of visiting the ruins of Pompei. Now, if you don't want to become the protagonist of one of those viral videos with tourists stuck facing a row of traffic coming the other way and the narrow bends of the Amalfi Coast, or one of the national news items where tourists have ended up paying exorbitant prices for a coffee or an ice cream, the best way to explore the Amalfi Coast is to trust in someone whose love and respect for the local territory will give you the best possible and authentic experience. Explore worldwide. Their tour includes a walk along the ancient steps and pathways from Ravello to Amalfi, as well as the Ferriere Nature Reserve. Of course, they could not leave out the iconic island of Capri and the site at Pompei, before finishing up with the Walk of the Gods in Positano. Explore Worldwide's respect for the local culture and environment extends to finding local tour leaders that can get you off the beaten track and into the heart of your adventure, and their small groups allow for a more personalized experience you will never forget. Whether it's visiting a Roman villa on the classical tour in Sicily or a food and wine tour in the hilltop towns of Tuscany, Explore take care of everything, putting the quality of their local tour leaders front and center, so you'll truly understand the wow factor of where you are. If you're thinking about your next adventure, head to exploreworldwide.com to find out more. Don't just travel, explore. Go to exploreworldwide.com for more information. So, thanks to Explore, we moved south from the smaller province of Naples into that of Salerno and the Amalfi Coast. Like the historical centre in Naples, this stretch of coast is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, adding to the over 60 that make Italy the country with the most in the world. The winding seaside route 163 leads you to the pastel-coloured houses of Positano, Ravallo, Praiano, and Furore, and of course, Amalfi. The latter was for a time an important maritime republic, managing to rival Pisa, Genoa, and even Venice. Unfortunately for Amalfi, their republic lasted a lot less than the others due to their proximity with the nascent Norman kingdom of Sicily. Now wait, I hear you say. You mean the big hairy Normans who started out life as Vikings? The ones who invaded England? William the Conqueror and all that? Yes, them. Well, a different group, but still Normans from Normandy. What were they doing all the way down here? Well, they started coming as pilgrims to southern Italy, which was a stop-off point for the Holy Land, but they also had a shrine that was dear to the Normans in Puglia. The local southern lords saw that these Norman fellows were pretty good at fighting and started to hire them as mercenaries. Then the Normans, liking the scenery and lovely weather and seeing what pushovers the locals were, decided to start carving out their own county and eventually conquered all of the island of Sicily and southern Italy, including Naples and poor little Amalfi, and created the Kingdom of Sicily under Roger II of the Hauteville family, who was crowned king in 1130. By then, Amalfi had already been conquered, having fallen to Roger's uncle, Robert Guiscard, in 1073. The definitive blow came for Amalfi in 1137 when that big bully Pisa sacked the poor city. The province of Salerno is not just the Amalfi Coast, but is also home to the Paestum Greek archaeological site, as well as that of Elea. Of course, the provincial seat, Salerno itself, is worth a visit. Overlooking the city and Gulf of Salerno is one of my favorite locations, the Castle of Arechi. Although the origin dates back to the 6th century when the Byzantines ruled over much of Italy, the name Arechi and the later 8th century fortification remind us of the Lombards. They were a Germanic people who invaded Italy in 568 and managed to conquer the majority of Italy, aside from the bits that were left to the Byzantines. They divided it into a series of duchies, and one of these was the Duchy of Benevento. It was the Duke of Benevento Arechi whom the Castle of Salerno is named after. If it's nature you're after in the Salerno province, you can find the Cilento and Valle di Diano National Park, as well as the caves of Castelcivita and Pertosa Auletta, where you will find an underground river. And speaking of caves and coast, you will also find the famous Blue Grotto of Palinuro. It's time to head back north now, as we have run out of region, and continuing to the south would lead us into Basilicata, and we're not quite ready for them yet. Since we came down along the coast to get here, let us now head inland through the province of Avellino. Not to take anything away from Salerno and its wonderful coast, but it's rather touristy, while Avellino will give us a more authentic experience as we explore its lush landscapes, charming villages and castles, and its more mountainous areas. Speaking of mountains, if we make our way through here in the winter, we could stop off for a skiing session at the Laceno ski resort. But there is also nothing stopping us from going there in the summer for some nice hikes in the Picentini mountain. If we're getting a bit thirsty, this would be a good place to stop off for some wine tasting, perhaps a glass or two of Greco di Tufo or Tauras, possibly accompanied by some caciocavallo cheese. As we continue our journey north and inland, we come to the province of Benevento, meaning good event or good wind, which actually started off life as a place called Malevento, bad event or bad wind. Aside from easy childish jokes about flatulence, which I immediately thought of course, this takes us back to those Romans, if they actually ever existed, of course. They made the switch in the year 268 BCE, since they had managed to defeat Pyrrhus in that area beforehand, and since that was basically a good feeling for them, they didn't want to be hanging around a place that meant bad event or bad wind to them. If you're wondering why anybody would call a place bad event to start with, it didn't actually mean that in the language of the pre-Roman peoples. Indeed, it had more to do with stones than bad things. We mentioned before that the castle of the Lombard Duke Arecchi is in the province of Salerno. Benevento, of course, was the capital of the Lombard Duchy of Benevento. Along with that of Spoleto further north, the two duchies were more independent than the northern ones, which were closer to the seat of the Lombard kings in Pavia, Lombardy. This level of independence allowed the southern duchies to survive the fall of the Italian Lombard kingdom, which came about in 774. The Duchy of Benevento became a principality and lasted until 1071, when it was gobbled up into the Norman kingdom of Sicily we mentioned before. We can find the traces of both Rome and the Lombards in Benevento. The Romans have left us the Ark of Trajan, one of the best conserved in the world, and the Roman theatre, while the Lombards, the Rocca dei Rettori fortress, the cathedral, and the church of Santa Sofia, another UNESCO World Heritage Site. But Benevento is not just history and heritage. Legend had it that outside of Benevento, along the banks of the river Sabato, there was a huge ancient walnut tree, and that at night, when the moon was full, the Janare, the witches of Benevento, would gather to dance around it, naked in the moonlight. Janare may come indeed from the goddess Diana, the Roman goddess of nature, hunting, and the moon. The tree element may have been brought by the Lombards, a people originally from northern Europe where tree worshipping was a big thing. Then, with the consolidation of the church, the cool, fun, sexy, witchy stuff was considered very naughty, and what was simply a neutral force of nature came to be considered evil. Witches became creatures that snuck into houses at night to torment and drink the blood of small children. Sound familiar? Baby drinking cabals? Nothing new about nutcases. To keep the witches away, you could have a broom leaning outside your door or a pouch full of salt under the bed. In either case, the witch was supposed to get distracted counting the straws of the broom or the grains of salt until the light of the sun came to shrivel them up. If you managed to catch a witch, and you had to do so by grabbing her by the hair, then in exchange for letting her go, your family would be safe for 7 generations to come. Things got really bad for the poor witches when they appeared on the radar of a priest called Bernardino da Siena. He, as well as preaching against the witches, also cut down their ancient walnut tree. Supposedly the great tree grew back, as a suspected witch, Matteuccia da Todi, confessed under torture during her trial in 1428. Since the poor witches have had more than enough bother, we'll move on, heading west, back to the coast, and wish them well. As we cross the border, we leave the province of Benevento for that of Caserta. The province has quite a lot to offer, starting with another ex-maritime republic, Capua, with its Roman amphitheatre, second only to the Colosseum itself. Then, surprise, surprise, another UNESCO site at the silk factory and village of San Leucio, as well as the natural beauty of the Matese Mountains, Mount Tifata, and the forest of San Silvestro. However, for most people, Caserta means the Reggia, the palace of Caserta. Would you believe it? The palace is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The gardens are the quintessential Italian gardens, a marvelous synthesis of landscaping, nature, statues, and caves, including an underground aqueduct and secret tunnels. As far as the palace itself, it was built in the 1700s for the Bourbon dynasty, with the idea of rivaling even the Palace of Versailles, and the opinion of many is it certainly does. This is the last of the 5 provinces of Campania, and also brings us full circle back to the concept of odd things that stick in your mind. I visited Caserta on a school trip sometime around the mid-90s, and the thing that stuck in my mind most comes back to me every time I listen to the song All Star by Smash Mouth. My first thought is feeling a bit sad that the singer Steve Harwell died prematurely. Then there is the lyric. Somebody once asked, could I spare some change for gas? I need to get myself away from this place. I said, yep, what a concept. I could use a little fuel myself, and we could all use a little change. Every time I hear that, it takes me back to Caserta. The visit to the palace and gardens had finished, and I was sitting outside on a bench with a friend of mine, Simone. We heard a buzzing coming along, and soon enough a moped appeared with 2 teenagers around our age without helmets. We 2 law-abiding northern boys were shocked and awed and a little impressed. We had heard that the young people did this sort of thing in the south, travelling 2 or even more on a scooter with no helmets. I have since seen 4 people on one scooter in Naples. Like the song, they asked us for money for gas, and Simone gave them a 5,000 lira bill. That may seem like a lot, but it's around €2.50. They went on their way. They hadn't been threatening to us, just the kind of people you didn't want to pick a fight with. I certainly would have given them the money to be on the safe side. I thought Simone had done it for the same reason, but I have known him now for more than 30 years. He is one of the people I admire most, and I have seen him intervene to face down a potentially violent boyfriend having a go at his girlfriend. So I think there was something else behind the gesture. As this mini-series continues, you will have learned time and time again there are so many different Italys in our long peninsula, and you don't even need to go from our north all the way down south to find that out. Sometimes we don't understand each other, and at times we even resent each other. But we are all part of this eccentric, weird, and wonderful country.